Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into a case that gripped Thailand and honestly still does. A very high profile, very mysterious death.
Yeah, years later, the debate is still intense. It's one of those cases where the official story just, well, hasn't satisfied everyone.
Exactly. Facts seem up for grabs, constantly being re-examined.
So we're doing a deep dive into the tragic death of the actress Nida Petravirapong, or Tangmo as most people know her, the Tangmo Nida case.
And our mission today really is to try and cut through some of that noise. We've gathered a lot of material, detailed reports, forensic stuff, legal docs, even analysis of how the public reacted.
Right. The goal is to pull out the key pieces, the most important nuggets, so you can get a clear picture of the facts, the science, the court decisions, and, maybe just as importantly, the impact this all had.
We want to explore why so many questions are still hanging out there, despite the official findings, and maybe uncover some surprising details when you really dig into the evidence. So let's get started.
Okay, so it all begins on the night of February 24th, 2022.
Right. Tangmo and five others, Poor, Robert, San, Craddock, and Job. They'd had dinner, then got on a speedboat on the Chao Phraya River.
And the key moment when she went into the water, that happened sometime between, say, 10:30 and 10:40 p.m. near the Rama 7th Bridge.
Now, this is where things immediately get complicated, isn't it? The very first account of what happened.
Yeah, it came from San, who was on the boat. She claimed Tangmo went to the back of the boat to urinate,
Off the back of a moving speedboat.
holding onto San's leg, apparently.
Yeah.
And then she fell in. Her body was found 2 days later, February 26th, about a kilometer away from where they thought she fell.
And that specific story, a famous actress urinating off the back of a boat, falling in, that instantly became what our sources are calling the genesis of doubt.
Absolutely. People just, well, they questioned how plausible that really was,
Yeah.
especially for a celebrity.
It seemed incredible to many, and because that was the first story, it kind of tainted everything else that came from the people on that boat, didn't it?
It really did. It damaged their credibility right from the start. Everything else they said was suddenly viewed with, deep suspicions, like that initial account cast a long shadow over the whole thing.
And that suspicion, it only got worse in the hours right after she fell.
Definitely. The behavior of the five others on board, it raised a lot of questions. Like, they didn't give precise coordinates for where she fell initially.
Which obviously complicated the search efforts. Critical time was lost.
Right. And then they didn't stay at the scene. They left.
They left. Why?
They said to compose themselves. And sources say they went to consult with this man, M. Phim Kamthir, someone seen as a sort of advisor or guru.
Before giving official statements to the police.
Exactly. So the immediate focus seemed to shift from, find Tangmo to something else.
Damage control. Legal strategy.
That's certainly how it looked to many. And even the police noted pretty quickly that the initial stories they did get were inconsistent.
Inconsistent how?
Well, it suggested they might be holding things back. One witness, for example, initially claimed the boat jerking made her fall.
But that didn't match up later.
No, it contradicted other statements
Yeah.
and, crucially, the GPS data we'll get into. So, leaving the scene, getting advice, coordinating stories, it strongly suggested, self-preservation became the priority over rescue.
And it wasn't just public perception thinking this, right? The legal system eventually weighed in on this initial behavior.
It did. Charges were later filed against Craddock, Job, and even M, the advisor, for things like false testimony and destroying evidence.
So the law basically confirmed that their initial actions were suspicious.
Yes, it legally validated those initial gut feelings many people had. This attempt to control the narrative from the get-go really undermined trust in whatever came next.
Okay, so amidst all this doubt and suspicion, what did the actual official investigation find? They spent a lot of time on this.
They did. 2 months, 124 witnesses interviewed, a huge report, nearly 2,500 pages.
And the conclusion?
The official verdict was, not an accident, not murder, but negligent acts by others.
Okay, unpack that. Negligent acts by others. So they weren't saying she just fell purely by accident on her own.
No, they explicitly rejected that. They believed others' negligence was involved. But importantly, they also said they couldn't confirm if she actually went to the back to urinate.
Ah, so the core of that initial story remained unverified by the police.
Right. Only San claimed to have seen it. But the police did believe someone fell from the stern area. The Attorney General's office agreed with the police findings and indicted all 6 suspects in August 2022.
And the charges were quite specific for each person based on that negligence finding and the earlier suspicious actions.
Yes. If you look at the breakdown, Warren Robert faced charges like negligence causing death, driving without a license, using a boat with an expired license, littering, and false testimony. Port also had that alprazolam charge.
Okay.
Sand was charged with negligence causing death. Craddock faced false testimony, destroying evidence, and also negligence causing death.
And
Job was charged with destroying evidence, littering, and negligence causing death. And finally, M, the advisor, was charged with helping others avoid punishment and getting them to give false testimony.
a real mix of charges reflecting different alleged roles. Now, what about the forensic evidence? The autopsy reports must have been critical.
Hugely critical. There were two autopsies, actually. Both confirmed the cause of death was asphyxiation due to drowning. They found mud and water in her lungs and stomach.
Standard for drowning, I suppose. Any key injuries?
Yes, the most significant one was a deep wound on her inner left thigh.
And what caused that?
It was found to be consistent with a boat propeller. And crucially, the autopsy indicated this wound happened before she died.
Before death, but was it the cause of death?
No, that's important. It wasn't directly fatal. It didn't hit major blood vessels.
Okay, so forensics can sometimes clarify things, but also raise more questions. Did the autopsies address any of the online rumors?
They did. The second autopsy especially debunked a lot of the wilder conspiracy theories concerned. No broken teeth, no head injuries, no signs of strangulation. So in that sense, it supported the basic idea of a fall and drowning.
But it couldn't answer everything.
Right. For instance, because of the body's condition, they couldn't examine the bladder for urine. So that whole peeing off the back of the boat claim, forensically, it remained unproven. Just sans word, essentially.
And the drug angle. There are rumors about drugs.
Alprazolam, which is a tranquilizer, was found in Poor's system, not Tango's. So that dismissed speculation she might have been drugged beforehand. Though Poor having it still raised some eyebrows, of course.
So the forensics were kind of a mixed bag for public understanding.
Exactly. A double-edged sword. It confirmed drowning, confirmed a propeller wound consistent with falling near a boat. But it couldn't verify the reason she was at the back of the boat. And that the leg wound wasn't fatal, that led to more questions.
Like, could she have been saved if help came faster?
Precisely. It fueled the debate about negligence, delayed rescue. It left this vacuum of truth, as one source put it, which just got filled with more speculation. Science confirmed the how, but not the why or the what-ifs.
Beyond the physical evidence, there was digital evidence, too. The boat's GPS data. That became a huge sticking point, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely massive. You had two completely conflicting interpretations of the same raw data.
Okay. Tell us about the official version first, the one the police used.
Right. That analysis, presented by an expert named Kittiput Thanasantharad, argued the GPS was highly accurate, updating multiple times a second. It showed the boat going at a pretty steady speed, around 8 knots, that's about 15 kilometers.
Steady speed.
Yeah, with only one brief acceleration up to 10 knots around the time of the incident. They used this data to basically debunk that earlier claim about the boat jerking suddenly.
Suggesting a smoother ride, which maybe made the peeing story seem slightly more plausible, or at least didn't contradict it violently.
Perhaps. It definitely formed the basis for the official timeline of events. But then you had this alternative analysis.
Presented by whom?
Mr. Ekaraj Nunfolkan and a team associated with Acharya Ruangrattanapong. They used custom software and claimed to find 20 to 30 suspicious points in the data.
Suspicious how? What did they find?
They reported finding sudden speed changes, accelerations, decelerations, what they call jerking, happening 11 times. They also noted much higher speeds at points, up to 36 knots, and some missing data, like water depth readings.
Wow, that's a completely different picture of the boat's movement. Much more erratic.
Exactly. And they presented this to the DSI, the Department of Special Investigation, arguing it undermined the official timeline and could potentially support other theories, like a struggle or something less accidental.
So how did the experts explain such different results from the same data?
Well, the first expert, Kittiput, essentially said the alternative analysis had methodological flaws. He claimed they used systems designed for land-based tracking, like Google Maps, on marine GPS data, which led to misinterpreting the signals.
So a technical disagreement about how to read the data.
Yes, but it became much more than that. For the public, the GPS data turned into a kind of Rorschach test.
Meaning
Meaning you had these two groups of experts presenting two totally different truths. Most people lack the technical skills to judge who's right. So they tended to believe the interpretation that fit what they already suspected about the case.
confirmation bias kicks in.
Big time. It just deepened the divide and showed how even seemingly objective data can end up fueling skepticism rather than resolving it, especially when trust is already low.
Okay, so we have conflicting witness accounts, forensic evidence that answers some questions but not all, and now conflicting GPS data. How did the courts make sense of all this? Let's talk verdicts.
Right, the court decisions were really revealing. There were two key rulings. First, on May 10th, 2023, Poor and Robert got their sentences.
They were the ones who confessed early on to some charges, right?
Yes, they confessed to negligence and other things. Poor got 2 years and 9 months in prison plus a fine. Robert got 2 years and 2 months and a fine.
But were the sentences carried out?
No, both were suspended for 3 years. A big reason cited was that they had already paid financial compensation to Tangmo's mother.
Okay. And then there was a second verdict for the others.
Yes, on May 23rd, 2025. This was for San, Craddock, Job, and M. And this one was quite different. The court acquitted San, Craddock, and M of the main charge, negligence causing death.
Acquitted them completely of that.
Of that specific serious charge, yes. Job was found guilty, but of lesser charges, destroying evidence and littering. He got a 6-month suspended sentence, a fine, and probation.
So just to recap the final outcomes, Poor and Robert guilty of negligence causing death, suspended sentences. San, Craddock, M acquitted of that charge. Job guilty of lesser charges, suspended sentence.
That's the essence of it.
Why? What was the court's reasoning, especially for acquitting San, Craddock, and M on the negligence charge? That seems like a major outcome.
It was. The court went into detailed reasoning. They acknowledged up front there were no direct eyewitnesses to the fall itself, so they were working with circumstantial evidence.
Yep.
They also stated they found the testimonies of the people on the boat, Poor, Robert, San, etc., to be consistent with each other, sequential, and logically coherent, which made it hard for the court to believe the accounts were just fabricated.
Consistent and coherent.
Yeah.
But what was the absolute core reason for the acquittals on negligence?
The absolute linchpin was the court's conclusion about how Tangmo ended up in the water. They ruled that her death resulted directly from her own risky and sudden act.
Going to the stern to urinate.
Exactly. The court termed this self-imposed risk.
Self-imposed risk. And legally, what does that mean?
Legally, it means her action broke the chain of causation. This is a key concept in negligence law, like under Thailand Criminal Code Section 291.
Explain that chain of causation idea.
Okay, think of it like this. For someone to be guilty of negligence causing death, their negligent acts, say, driving the boat badly or without a license, must be the direct cause of the death. There needs to be an unbroken link. The court decided Tangmo choosing to go to the dangerous stern area on her own was an independent act that intervened. It broke that direct link between any negligence by the others, like board or driving without a license, and her actually falling.
So even if they were negligent in other ways, their negligence wasn't seen by the court as the direct cause of her specific fall.
Precisely. Her own action was deemed the immediate cause, and that was the fundamental legal basis for acquitting San, Craddock, and M of negligence causing death.
Wow. Okay, that highlights a huge gap, doesn't it?